The silence in the room was almost tangible. Caleb watched his 7-year-old daughter Emma desperately trying to maintain a smile while all her cousins unwrapped luxurious gifts. Emma's small hands clutched her red party dress tightly, her big, expressive eyes struggling to hold back tears that threatened to spill at any moment. "I'm sorry, sweetheart, but we couldn't buy anything for your kids this year. You know how things are," said Marion, Caleb's mother, as she adjusted her pearl necklace. The same necklace he was sure wasn't there last week when he briefly visited his parents to drop off some repairs for the family car. Next to him, his wife Sophia took a deep breath, gently squeezing his hand under the table. That silent gesture spoke volumes. Not now, not in front of the kids. Across the room, decorated with twinkling lights and expensive ornaments, Ethan, his older brother, smiled triumphantly as his kids tore into extravagant gift wrap. An iPad for Lucas, age 9. A pair of limited edition sneakers for Sophie, age 8. Even custom leather jackets for both of them. "Look, Dad, it's exactly what I wanted," Lucas shouted, holding up the electronic device as camera flashes captured the perfect moment for the family's social media. Little Max, only 5, tugged at Caleb's shirt sleeve. "Daddy, did Santa forget us this year?" Caleb felt as though a knife twisted in his chest. He and Sophia had saved for months to buy the modest gifts they brought for everyone. A handmade sweater for his mother, a good quality basic tool set for his father, even a bottle of whiskey for Ethan, despite their history. "No, buddy," Caleb knelt down to meet his son's gaze. "Santa never forgets anyone. He left your presents at home, remember? We'll open them when we get back." But the explanation sounded hollow, even to his own ears. The kids weren't foolish. Emma had already figured it all out. And the look she shot at her grandparents held a painful maturity for someone so young. As the family gathered for the traditional Christmas photo, Caleb noticed something on the side table. It was a bill carelessly left atop a book. It was none of his business, but the header caught his eye. "Final payment approved, custom Ford F-150 truck." Next to it, a folded brochure from a local spa with several dates marked under his mother's name. That's when his father, Richard, raised his glass for a toast and announced, "To our family, thriving together. We received our bonuses this year, and retirement has never looked so good." Caleb's world came to a halt. The pieces began to fit together like a twisted puzzle. There was no financial struggle, just a choice, the same choice his parents had made since he could remember. "Come on, Emma and Max, it's time for the family photo," Grandma called, gesturing for the kids to position themselves at the ends of the couch. Almost as an afterthought to the main image, the grandparents in the center, Ethan and his wife Jennifer just behind, and their kids in the spotlight. Emma looked at her dad, as if asking for permission to refuse, but Caleb merely nodded, swallowing the knot forming in his throat. Some battles aren't worth fighting at Christmas, at least not in front of the kids. The click of the camera captured false smiles and an undeniable truth Caleb could no longer ignore. To his family of origin, he and his children would always be secondary characters in a story where Ethan was the undisputed star. "Listen, Caleb, it's a fund for the whole family," Richard explained over the phone 3 weeks after the Christmas incident. "Everyone contributes what they can to help with emergencies and important expenses for the grandkids." Caleb adjusted the valve of an engine while balancing the phone between his shoulder and ear. The shop where he worked was particularly busy that January morning. "I understand," he replied simply, trying to focus on both tasks. "Great, so we need you to deposit $1,000 this month." Caleb nearly dropped the wrench. "1,000? I thought you said 500 for each." "Yes, but Ethan is a bit tight with the private school tuition for the boys. You know how important that is for their future. So this first month, could you cover his share?" The silence that followed was filled only with the metallic clanking of tools in the shop. "Caleb, are you there?" "I am. I'll see what I can do," he replied automatically, knowing that $1,000 meant cutting Emma's ballet class and Max's school trip next month. can I know what the fund will be used for this month? An impatient sigh came from the other end. Lucas needs a laptop for school, and Sophie wants to take a theater course. Investments in the future, you know how it is. Investments in the future. Caleb hung up after a brief goodbye and stared at the wall in front of him, where he had hung a photo of his kids. Whose future was truly being invested in? It was humiliating, Sophia, Caleb vented as he set the dinner plates on the table. They organized this compensation dinner, supposedly for all the kids, and when we got there, there were more gifts. Guess who they were for? Sophia shook her head as she finished serving the soup. Don't tell me. Lucas and Sophie got expensive science kits because, according to my mom, they showed interest in astronomy. Emma has loved stars since she was 4. She has a star map glued to her bedroom ceiling. Emma walked into the kitchen at that moment, dragging her stuffed rabbit by the arm. Her eyes were slightly red. "Are you okay, Princess?" Sophia asked, crouching to meet her daughter's height. "Grandma posted pictures from Sophie's surprise party today. There was a bouncy castle and a person dressed as a princess." She hugged the rabbit tighter. "I didn't even know there was a party." Caleb and Sophia exchanged glances. It wasn't the first time they discovered family events through social media. Caleb's phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from his dad. "Son, I need you to help with Ethan's truck payment this month. He's going through a tough time at work." The same job where Ethan had been promoted to senior manager just 3 months ago with a substantial raise. The same brother who drove a custom truck while Caleb fixed his 15-year-old car daily just to keep it running. At that moment, looking at his daughter's sad face and the message on his phone, something broke inside Caleb. It wasn't anger, it was crystal clear clarity. The problem was never money. The problem was, and always would be, the value his family of origin placed on him and his children. "Emma," he called softly, "how about we build our own castle this weekend? Not an inflatable one, but a real one, with cardboard and paints. We can make it big enough for you and Max to play inside." The girl's eyes lit up. "Can we make a star observatory on top, Dad?" "Of course we can, Princess. And you know what? I'm going to start a new project that will change a lot for our family. You'll see." Sophia looked questioningly at her husband, noticing a new determination in his eyes. "What project?" she asked after Emma went out to call her brother for dinner. "I'm going to stop waiting for them to value us, and I'm going to build something no one can ignore," Caleb replied, with a certainty he had never shown before. The night was quiet, except for the occasional creak of a chair and the typing on a computer keyboard. Caleb stared intently at the spreadsheet on the screen, adjusting numbers, calculating possibilities. 3 in the morning, and he was wide awake, driven by a determination he didn't even know he had. "Still awake?" Sophia appeared at the door of the makeshift office, wearing a worn bathrobe. "Sorry if I woke you," Caleb mumbled, rubbing his tired eyes. Sophia approached and looked over her husband's shoulder. The screen displayed detailed spreadsheets, business plans, and a folder titled Evidence. "What's all this?" Caleb turned the chair to face her. "Remember Mr. Morales, the owner of the shop where I work? He mentioned he wants to retire and sell the business." "And you're thinking of buying it?" Sophia's eyes widened. "But how could we?" "I've been saving every extra cent for the past 3 months. I picked up all the extra shifts I could. Plus," he opened another spreadsheet, "I started restoring classic cars on the weekends. Remember the Chevelle I bought for a steal? I just sold it for 3 times what I paid." Sophia sat on the edge of the table, processing the information. "And this folder of evidence?" Caleb's face hardened slightly. "I'm documenting everything. Every message, every exclusion, every unfair request. Not for revenge, but because one day when the kids grow up and ask why we distanced ourselves from the family, I want to have concrete answers." He clicked into the folder, revealing dozens of meticulously organized files, screenshots of family group messages where plans were made without including them,
The email where his mother explicitly told Ethan not to invite Caleb on a trip because he would complain about the cost. Records of bank transfers to cover Ethan's expenses, photos of parties they were deliberately excluded from, even an audio file with a voicemail from his dad asking for money for his brother's truck. Sophia ran her fingers through Caleb's hair, a gesture of affection. "Do you really think we can buy the shop?" "Not just buy it," Caleb replied, with a determined glint in his eyes.
"I'm going to turn it into the best business in the area. I've done the math. With my reputation as a mechanic and some strategic investments, we can expand services and even hire more people." "And what about the contribution to the family fund?" Sophia asked, making air quotes. Caleb smiled for the first time that night. "I deposited exactly $250, half of the originally agreed amount, not a penny more. If they question it, I'll tell the truth. It's what we can contribute without jeopardizing our own kids' future." The following months flew by in a blur of activity. Caleb worked tirelessly, splitting his time between his regular job, restoration projects, and planning the future business. Each small victory was celebrated as a family. Paying off credit card debts, landing the first contract to restore a collector car, securing the bank loan that, combined with his savings, made the purchase of the shop possible. Emma and Max watched their father's transformation with childlike admiration. To them, Dad always seemed strong, but now there was something more, a confidence that radiated from him like an aura. "Dad looks like a superhero when he comes back from the garage," Max commented one night as Sophia tucked him into bed. "Is he building a secret fortress?" Sophia smiled, adjusting the blanket over the little one. "Something like that, honey. He's building a better future for all of us." At the shop, now officially purchased and sporting the name Caleb's Restorations on the facade, the changes were visible. New equipment arrived weekly, the waiting room was renovated to provide comfort for customers, and the first employee, a young apprentice named Diego, was already learning the secrets of the trade. "Mr. Ribeiro," Diego called one busy afternoon, "there's someone here wanting to talk to you." Caleb emerged from underneath a 1967 Mustang, wiping his hands on a rag. Turning, he saw a sharply dressed man holding a briefcase. "Caleb Ribeiro, I'm Carlos Mendez from the Auto Elite Network. We're looking for quality shops for our new classic car restoration franchise, and your name has been consistently mentioned." That conversation would change everything. An expansion proposal, an invitation to become the go-to shop for classic car restoration in the region, complete with funding to double the space and triple the equipment. That night when Caleb got home, instead of the usual exhaustion, there was a radiant smile on his face. "You won't believe what happened today," he said, spinning Sophia around as soon as he stepped through the door. And as he shared about the proposal, the expansion plans, the bright future that now seemed within reach, a message arrived on the family cell phones. "Special dinner next Friday. Important announcement about the family fund. Everyone's presence is mandatory. Marion and Richard." The restaurant chosen by Marion and Richard for the important announcement was exactly the kind of place that made Caleb feel out of place. White linen tablecloths, polished silverware, waiters in formal attire circulating silently among the tables. The kind of spot where a mechanic, even the owner of an expanding shop, still felt scrutinized. "You look handsome," Sophia whispered, adjusting the tie Caleb rarely wore. "And more importantly, you belong anywhere you want to be." The reserved table accommodated not only the nuclear family, but also uncles, cousins, and Caleb's paternal grandparents. A complete family gathering, something that usually only happened on occasions like weddings or graduations. Events that, Caleb bitterly noted, were always related to Ethan's achievements or those of his children. "Caleb, Sophia, finally!" Marion exclaimed, with that exaggerated enthusiasm that never reached her eyes. "Where are Emma and Max?" "With Sophia's mother." Caleb replied calmly, "We thought a meeting at 9 in the evening would be too late for kids aged 7 and 5. Of course, but what a shame. Lucas and Sophie are here. I thought the kids could have fun together." Caleb looked across the table, where Lucas and Sophie, impeccably dressed, were engrossed in their electronic devices, completely absorbed and clearly used to being present at adult events regardless of the hour. As dinner progressed through superficial conversations and forced laughter, Caleb observed. It was as if he were seeing his family for the first time, with eyes finally free from childish illusions. His father, always proud of Ethan, leaned constantly toward his older son, soaking up every word as if they were pearls of wisdom. His mother, perpetually concerned with maintaining appearances, preserved the original language while throwing critical glances at every detail, from the guests' outfits to how they held their utensils. Ethan, as always, occupied the center of attention. His latest feat, a successful negotiation at work, was narrated with embellishments and exaggerations, eliciting odd exclamations from everyone. Jennifer, his wife, complimented each story with details that further elevated her husband's status. And then there were the more distant relatives, who treated Caleb with that typical condescension reserved for family members who didn't quite make it. Questions about how's work at the shop, always in a tone suggesting that fixing cars was a temporary occupation, something he did while not having found a real job. "And how are things with you, Caleb?" finally asked Aunt Beatrice, his mother's sister, during a pause in Ethan's unending saga. "Still fixing cars?" Sophia felt the tension in Caleb's body beside her. She knew how these seemingly innocent questions carried decades of unmet expectations and unfair comparisons. "Actually," Caleb replied, with a calmness that surprised even him, "things are going exceptionally well." A curious silence fell over the table. It was uncommon for Caleb to talk about himself, and certainly not with such a confident tone. "That's great, dear," Marian quickly responded, clearly uncomfortable with the possibility that her less favored son might have something relevant to share. "But now, let's get to the reason for this meeting." Richard cleared his throat, assuming his patriarchal role. "As you know, our family has always supported one another. Traditionally, this support happened informally, but Marian and I felt it was time to better organize our contributions." Caleb knew exactly what was coming next. It was the official announcement of the family fund they had been hinting at for months. "We are officially creating the Ribeiro Fund," Richard continued, distributing printed brochures with a family logo and suggested contribution spreadsheets. "Each family unit will contribute monthly according to their means, and the resources will be used for urgent needs, education of the grandkids, and occasionally for special celebrations." Sophia examined the spreadsheet and nearly choked. The suggested contribution for them had doubled from the amount initially mentioned to Caleb. "The idea is wonderful," Ethan interjected with his perfect smile. "Imagine the support we can give to the next generation. Lucas already shows talent for programming, and an intensive course abroad would do wonders for his future." It was then that Richard, with a calculated move Caleb recognized from countless previous situations, looked directly at him. "And we expect, of course, that those of us who are entrepreneurs set the example. After all, we need to demonstrate to the young ones the importance of family generosity." It was the cue. The moment where Caleb, as he always had, was supposed to accept the disproportionate burden, thank them for the opportunity to help the family, and silently carry the weight of unfair expectations. Except this time, Caleb had something different in mind. Slowly, he opened the folder of documents he had brought with him, the same folder he had shown to Sophia months before, now considerably thicker. Its contents, meticulously organized and printed on high-quality paper, were about to turn a family dinner into a long-awaited moment of reckoning. The silence that settled over the table was so thick it felt almost tangible. Caleb calmly opened the folder, organizing the documents in front of him with the precision of a lawyer preparing to present an irrefutable case. "Before we discuss my contribution to this fund," he began, his voice surprisingly serene, I'd like to better understand how the resources have been distributed thus far. Richard frowned, clearly unaccustomed to being questioned, especially by the son who always accepted his decisions. What do you mean, Caleb? We've always been transparent about the family's needs. Transparent? Caleb repeated the word, letting it linger in the air for a moment. Let's analyze this transparency then. He pulled out the first document from the folder, a detailed table with dates, amounts, and descriptions. Over the past 2 years, I've been asked to contribute exactly $27,800 for family emergencies. Of that amount, $23,000 were exclusively allocated to expenses related to Ethan or his kids. A murmur swept over the table. Jennifer, Ethan's wife, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "This is absurd," Marion interjected, her face already reddening. "You're counting voluntary gifts as if they were obligations." Voluntary? Caleb pulled out another document, copies of text messages. Message from March 19th. "Caleb, we need you to deposit $1,200 today for Lucas's summer camp. I know it's more than agreed, but Ethan is having trouble with his credit card." Message from May 2nd. "Sophie's birthday is this weekend. We're counting on your contribution of $800 for the themed cake." Ethan, for the first time that night, looked genuinely perplexed. "Those were exceptional situations, and you always said you didn't mind helping." "Not minding helping is different from being the automatic solution to every financial problem of yours," Caleb replied, still maintaining his calm tone. "Especially when that help is never reciprocal." He pulled out a third set of documents, photos. Emma's birthday, last year. No one from the family attended because it coincided with Lucas's soccer championship final. Max's preschool graduation. Only Sophia and I were present, despite the invitation sent a month in advance. Christmas this year. Emma and Max without presents, while Lucas and Sophie received iPads and brand-name clothes. Caleb's grandmother, who had been observing silently until then, covered her mouth in shock. "That can't be right. We always send gifts for all the kids." "They did, Grandma," Caleb confirmed with a sad smile. "But somehow, Emma and Max's gifts always got lost or were forgotten by my parents. Curious, isn't it?" Marion rose slightly, her face now completely red. "This is nonsense. You're accusing us of deliberately lying?" "I'm not accusing anyone of anything," Caleb replied, keeping his composure. "I'm just presenting documented facts, like this email sent by you, Mom, to the group planning the beach trip. Better not include Caleb and family this time. He'll always complain about the cost, and his kids are too small to enjoy it anyway." Marion's face paled as she recognized her own words. "Or this voicemail," Caleb continued, pulling out his phone. "Sent by Dad 3 weeks ago." He pressed play, and Richard's deep voice filled the space around the table. "Caleb, I need you to cover Ethan's truck payment this month. $58,000 is a lot for him right now, but you've always been good at managing money. Call me as soon as you can." Richard swallowed hard, his eyes avoiding contact with the other guests at the table. $58,000, murmured one of the uncles, incredulous. "That's the truck payment amount?" Caleb slowly closed the folder, his eyes scanning each face around the table. There was no anger in his expression, only a serene determination. "For years, I believed I wasn't enough, that I constantly needed to prove my worth, that I had to compensate for some mysterious deficiency that made me less deserving of love and respect from this family. I accepted crumbs of attention and carried disproportionate burdens, always hoping that one day I would be seen as an equal." He then pulled out a business card from the folder and placed it in the center of the table. "Caleb's Restorations, Classic Car Specialists and High Performance Customization," read the elegant card with the Auto Elite logo.
I'm no longer just a mechanic fixing cars in some shop. I'm the owner of an expanding business with an exclusive contract with the largest classic car restoration network in the country. Next month, we'll start construction on the new headquarters, twice the size with state-of-the-art equipment. The look of shock on Ethan's face was almost comical. You? How did you manage that? Working, Caleb replied simply. Working hard, saving every penny, and believing in my own worth, since no one else in this family seemed capable of doing so. He stood up, adjusting his jacket with dignity. Sophia also stood, intertwining her fingers with his in a gesture of solidarity. As for my contribution to the family fund, Caleb concluded, I'm afraid I'll have to decline. I'd rather invest in the future of my own kids. Those whom you have repeatedly shown do not deserve the same love and attention as the other grandkids. If one day you decide that Emma and Max deserve to be treated with the same dignity and care as Lucas and Sophie, maybe we can reconsider our participation in family events. And with those words, Caleb and Sophia left the restaurant, leaving behind a table in absolute shock and decades of silent submission. 3 weeks passed since the confrontation at the restaurant. Caleb immersed himself in work, expanding the business with renewed determination. The shop now had 5 employees, and the construction of the new headquarters was progressing rapidly. The kids noticed the change, not just in material circumstances, with the promise of a new, larger home on the horizon, but mainly in their father's attitude. Caleb was smiling more, spending more time playing with them, seeming lighter, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The phone rang a few times with his parents' number displayed on the screen, but Caleb chose not to answer. He wasn't ready yet. He needed this time to solidify his identity outside the shadow of the family, to strengthen the new roots he was planting for his own family unit. The reactions to the confrontation varied and reached Caleb through different channels. A text message from Aunt Beatrice. I never imagined a situation was so serious. I always thought it was strange how they treated you, but I never had the courage to speak up. I'm sorry. An email from his grandfather, straightforward and blunt as he had always been. Caleb, you showed more courage in one night than I have in decades watching this injustice. We are proud of you. Your grandmother and I would like to get to know our great-grandchildren better, if you allow. Curiously, Ethan had not made contact, except for a single furious message sent the morning after the dinner. You ruined everything. Years of family harmony destroyed by your unnecessary drama. I hope you're satisfied. Family harmony. Caleb couldn't help but smile with bitter irony upon reading those words. The harmony that existed was built on his silence and acceptance of a secondary role. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, while Caleb worked in the garden with Emma and Max, planting sunflowers in colorful pots, the sound of a car parking in the driveway caught his attention. Dad, Emma called, pointing discreetly, Grandma and Grandpa are here. Caleb turned to see Richard and Marion awkwardly exiting their luxury sedan. They seemed smaller somehow, less imposing than the image they always projected. Richard had a drawn face, and Marion, usually immaculate, appeared to have dressed with less care than usual. Kids, why don't you finish planting the sunflowers with Mom? Caleb suggested, exchanging a meaningful glance with Sophia, who nodded, understanding the need for that private moment. He walked slowly to the gate, wiping the sweat from his forehead and his hands dirty with soil on a towel. Dad, Mom, he greeted, not opening the gate immediately. What brings you here? Richard seemed uncomfortable, as if he were in completely unfamiliar territory. Can we talk for a few minutes? Caleb hesitated, then waved for them to follow him to the front porch, where there was a small table with chairs. He wasn't ready to invite them inside just yet. We came, Richard started, but Marion interrupted him. We came because we need to talk, Caleb. Her voice trembled slightly. What happened at that dinner? It was the truth, Caleb completed calmly, a truth that needed to be said. Marion nodded, surprising him. Yes, it was. We didn't realize, or maybe we didn't want to realize, how unfair we have been. It wasn't intentional.
Richard added hastily, "You've always been so independent, so capable of taking care of yourself, while Ethan always needed more," Caleb interjected. "More attention, more money, more praise, more opportunities. And you compensated for each of his deficiencies with resources that could have been distributed equally between the two of us, between the 4 grandkids." A heavy silence settled, broken only by the distant sound of Anna and Max laughing in the backyard. "Your grandmother called us," Richard finally said. "She said things that we never expected to hear from her, about how she has watched for years what she called blatant favoritism. And then Jennifer, of all people, reached out to us," Richard continued. "Apparently, she has been uncomfortable for a long time with how Ethan manipulates situations to gain financial advantages. He's not in difficulties, as he always claims." "I know," Caleb replied, simply. Marian discreetly wiped away a tear. "How could we not have seen it? How did we let this happen for so long? Emma and Max are just as precious as Lucas and Sophie." "More precious, to me," Caleb said without hostility. "Just as Lucas and Sophie are likely more precious to Ethan. It's natural. What isn't natural is the disparity in treatment from the grandparents." Richard extended a trembling hand over the table, not daring to touch Caleb, but offering the gesture as a bridge. "We can't undo the past, son, but we would like, if you allow us, to try to do better from now on." "It's not for my sake," Caleb replied, looking in the direction of the garden where the children were playing. "I'm already an adult. I built my life to spite you, not because of you. But Emma and Max, they're still kids. They deserve grandparents who love them as much as they love their cousins." "Can we try?" Marian asked. With a vulnerability Caleb had never witnessed in his always composed and confident mother. "Can we have a chance to truly get to know them, to be part of their lives?" Caleb took a deep breath. The path to reconciliation wouldn't be easy or quick. The broken trust built over decades wouldn't be rebuilt in a single conversation. "You can come for lunch on Sunday," he finally said. "But there are conditions. No more secret parties from which we're excluded. No more extravagant gifts for Lucas and Sophie while Emma and Max receive crumbs. No more financial manipulations or blatant favoritism." "We agree," Richard said quickly. "We've already talked about this, and we want to change, for real." In the garden, Emma looked curiously in the direction of the porch. Caleb waved for her and Max to come over. The kids ran over, their hands still dirty from the soil. "Grandma! Grandpa!" Max exclaimed with the typical innocence of his 5 years, carrying none of the burdens the adults accumulated. "Hello, dears," Marian said, clearly emotional. "We were thinking, would you like to spend some time with us this weekend? We could go to the zoo, maybe." Emma looked at her dad, as if seeking permission or guidance. Caleb smiled slightly and nodded. "If you want to go, that's okay." "Can we see the lions?" Max asked excitedly. "And the monkeys?" "Of course you can," Richard replied with a genuine smile. "And afterwards, maybe you can tell us about those sunflowers you're planting." Emma eagerly explained. "They're for a science experiment. We're studying how plants follow the sun. I'm going to build an observatory to track their movement every day." Marian exchanged the significant look with Caleb. "An observatory? That sounds fascinating. You know, I think I have some books on astronomy that you might like, Emma." As the kids excitedly discussed their projects, preserve the original language of caution and hope. He knew the road would be long, that there would be setbacks and difficult moments. Ethan would likely resist the changes, accustomed as he was to being the center of attention and family resources. But for the first time in a long while, there was a genuine possibility for healing. Not a naive reconciliation that ignored the past, but a new beginning grounded in truth and clear boundaries. The following Sunday, when Caleb and his family arrived for lunch at his parents' house, a surprise awaited them at the entrance.
4 colorful bags were lined up in the hallway, each with a carefully written name: Lucas, Sophie, Emma, and Max. Identical gifts in size and, as they would later discover, in value and consideration. Emma grabbed her bag with shining eyes, finding inside a children's telescope and a book about constellations. "Look, Dad," she exclaimed, amazed. "Now I can see the stars for real." Caleb felt Sophia squeeze his hand, a silent gesture that said it all. It wasn't just a gift, it was a symbol, a small but significant first step. As he watched his daughter admire the telescope, Caleb understood that his true revenge was never about public humiliation or settling scores. It was about breaking a toxic cycle of favoritism, establishing healthy boundaries, and ensuring his children knew their true value, not just in the eyes of others, but most importantly, in their own eyes. The real victory wasn't in confrontation, but in the rebuilding that was now beginning. A rebuilding grounded in mutual respect, clear limits, and the strength Caleb discovered within himself throughout that journey. A strength that had always been there, just waiting for the right moment to manifest. If you were moved by this story about courage, healthy boundaries, and familial justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the subscribe button now. Activate the notification bell and leave your comment sharing if you have ever experienced or witnessed family favoritism situations. Your stories inspire us to create deeper and more meaningful content. Until the next narrative.